Good morning. It's Uncle Bruce again. And this morning, I want to have kind of a heart to heart talk with y'all about how to get a deal closed. Look, I'm more than 2 weeks old. I've been involved in a ton of deals through the years, and they all seem to fall into a pattern. Now, you might have seen or known of somebody that did $1 billion deal, but I've done hundreds of smaller deals, some of which are moving towards bigger sizes, and I think it's better to listen to the guy who's done a bunch of little deals because little deals get big. The one guy that gets the unicorn, how many times are you going to be a unicorn? You could dream about it, but what's wrong with $100 million deal instead of $1 billion or $10 billion deal? Just make a good deal and see what happens. So, look, our basic philosophy is to get something intelligent in front of prospective investors. You don't want to write that giant business plan for 15 weeks. It becomes rigid, immobile, and you need to be able to listen to your prospects. And the more you've written, the tighter it becomes, and the more you're entrenched in concrete, and you're going to argue. That's not what you want to do when you're listening to people with money. Listen to them carefully. Be able to pivot and return with some changes. Secure early interest. And you know what? Be interested in your prospects. People come to me and go, yakety, 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 yak, ba-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba, oh, I've got so much passion. You know what? I'm turned off in a heartbeat with that. I don't care how much passion you got. It's how smart you are. It's how much work you've done. Can I work with you? Will you listen to any advice? I'm telling you, some people don't want to listen to any advice. You open your mouth and blub, 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 blub. They interrupt all the time. They think that that's being smart. It's being stupid. You got these things here? You got these things here? Listen and look. The guys with the money are probably a lot smarter than you, but they don't tell you that. You think you're smarter because you're a young whippersnapper. Great. We were all once young whippersnappers, so cool your jets. Remember, it's far better to be interesting than interested. You know the difference? Oh, I'm doing this, and I'm this. Oh, my God, I'm so great. And, oh, I'm beautiful. And, oh, wow, look at my beautiful clothes. And, oh, I traveled, and I'm driving this big car, and I bought a condo. And, oh, my God, I'm with lots of beautiful ladies or whatever. Interesting? Nah. Mr. Investor, I see you like to play polo. I've been out there. That's a wonderful sport. When are you going to have your next match? I'd like to watch you play. Wow, what an interesting thing. You're interested in the guy with the money. You might even strike up a friendship with that idea. Try it. It works. It takes some time. Now look, I'm going to scroll down here. And what does that say right here? What to do? Always start creating relationships with investors, even if you have no business. You never know when you're going to need to call up somebody for some help. Be sociable. Go out and visit lots of people. Go to church. Go to weddings. Go to parties. Stay out at all the bars. That's not where it's at. Unless you want to go to a high-class bar where nothing but 55-year-old people go. They're the ones that got the money. So sit around and talk to people and listen. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your ears open. Ask some interesting questions. The person that asks questions that are decent, that are smart, immediately does two things. You're basically controlling the conversation. And guess what? If you ask smart questions, pretty soon they say, this guy's really smart. I want to tell you, I go to a lot of luncheons. These investment luncheons. And I ask the best questions. Everybody always comes up and says, Bruce, man, those are good questions. I'm not trying to stump the band. I'm actually trying to learn, because in every one of these presentations, you can learn something. Even though you don't take your checkbook out and write anything, go to these things. Be interested, supportive of the person that's speaking. Don't ask, stump the band questions. Ask a question that might embellish what he's trying to say. First off, they'll love you for it. You look like a hero in the audience. And guess what? You start to build a reputation of being a smart person, somebody that's caring, somebody that's interested. Remember, it's better to be interested than interesting. Okay, so let's go down this long list, because you could have 100 different ways of doing things. Look, I'm going to argue and argue and argue about this point. You must start with some projections. Numbers first, words follow. I see so many deals that are concepts and there are no quantitative efforts. I mean, oh, I'm going to go to the moon. Oh, what a great idea. How are you going to get there? I'm going to build a rocket ship. Great. You know how to? Well, no, but somebody else does. Forget about it. Okay. The founders have painted that glowing picture, but they're just artists at that moment. Everybody needs an artist, but it soon fades. Look, I'm an artist. I got stuff all over the walls that I've painted. Doesn't make me any money. If you can't accurately quantify, meaning time, cost, resources, gross margin, EBITDA, etc., you have nothing. All you got is a few words and a pretty picture. That was not an earthquake. That was me setting up the table better. Okay. That is why I've built and refined dozens of calculators to help startups. Yeah, that's what I do best. Why? Because if you can quantify, you've really got something. Anybody can see a picture. To quantify that picture is the key thing. And the process of quantification finds the flaws. There's always a flaw that you have to avoid. If you know about that flaw, you look really smart in front of the investors, because guess what? They're going to figure it out too. It's a giant game of chess, and I'm a very good chess player. Let me tell you about playing chess. You think ahead, you think strategically, you think tactically. It's the same thing in business, folks. You think ahead and you say, what is this guy going to ask me? Where's the weak points? What is my smart, not a smart ass, but a smart rejoinder? Do I have the answers? If you don't, you look them in the eye and say, it's a great question. I'm going to get back to you. Write down that question, and then I'll say, I'll get you those answers. But you're right. That's a good question. If you get painted into the corner and you realize you've made a mistake, say, you know what? I screwed up. I really don't know the answer to that question. Wow, transparency and honesty. What a concept today. Let me tell you something. The guys with the money will ask the questions 3 times. Why? Because people forget, and they answer 3 different ways. If you're inconsistent, it isn't going to happen because they're thinking maybe you're a liar. You think there's a few liars out there? You see this gray hair? I can't tell you how many times I've come across people that lied. Now, there are 2 kinds of liars. One that does it on purpose, that's called a crook, and the other one is just misguided, doesn't realize they don't know crap. And when they don't know crap, it costs you money. And if you're an investor, you're trying to stay away from losing your money. So that's why they ask a lot of questions. And you may be tired of all the questions. Let me tell you, they worked a long time to get their money. They're not about to hand it out to you so that you can show them how much passion you have and spending your money. Now, there's another thing about spending money. If you've never done a startup and you've worked for big corporations, there's a great tendency to just take that money and start spending it. I'm telling you, whatever you have in your budget, start it at about half the rate and see if it works. Don't just go out in the shotgun and say, well, I got 10 line items. Boom, 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 boom. I got to do them all. It takes longer to figure out if you've spent the money the right way. I've seen deals within the first several months, they've spent half their money. And they're supposed to have a 28-month or maybe 18-month runway. It's half gone in the first few weeks. Don't be that stupid. All right, let's keep on with this list. Okay. We like 24-month projections. Why? Well, because nobody can see that far out anyway. But you have to do it. And 24 months gives you enough resolution. What's going to happen in month 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? When you're going to start hiring people, when you put that nice fancy office. Oh, don't put the fancy office on. Delay, delay, delay. Don't take on a bunch of liabilities like a lease. They prosecute if you can't pay the lease. Funny thing about that, they might even ask you for your signature. Hey, your signature. You'll show up in court and you got to pay for the lease if you go bust. All right. You can also do it by the year if you want to get a rough idea. But by the year, man, you can go bankrupt in year 2 and not even see it in the financials. Don't do it. Do the 24 months. But if you got to, we allow you to do it both ways. Look, you got to have 3 sets of financial statements. You got to have that income statement, the balance sheet. and the cash flow. Cash flow is actually probably more important than either of those two, but you have to have all three. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't really need that. Let me tell you something. The number one thing that investors are looking for is how good is the management team. Now, you are spending their money. And a set of financial statements shows that you understand money. Now, if you have somebody else make them, like if you put them into my model, be sure you can argue the points as to what is going on. Otherwise, you're going to look just as stupid. You say, well, here are the financial statements. And they say, well, what about month 13? Oh, I don't know. That's just the way it is. You lose. We allow you to turn off the 24 months and go directly to the years. You'll see that. Investors actually like to see three sets: the good, bad, and the ugly. That's why we gave you three. That's why we call this three thin. What do you know about that? Okay, deal maker. This is the fun part. I'm going to scroll this up so we can keep on going. Okay. You need to fill in some data. If you want to get a quick little idea of what kind of shares you're going to give out, what percentage of the deal you're going to give out, go to my free little deal. It's called sharkcaptable.com. It's a beautiful little calculator. It works really well on Android. It's a little bit dicey on iPhone because when you use the sliders, the whole iPhone screen tends to move this way. You have to be very precise. Sorry, couldn't do any better about it, but that's the way it is. It worked great on a desktop. There's no sliding back and forth. All right. You have to award your founder and early shareholders and management options. That's how you get started. Now, don't forget, over here in this section here, this is showing you the tabs and where you're going. I'm just kind of prattling along here to get you to think about what we're talking about. You have to establish pre-money valuation. Yeah, we give you a good way to do that. Buy the component, not just so I'm worth $5 million because I'm pretty and wear white glasses and a really cool white hat and a Hawaiian shirt. That's worth $5 million. No, it's not. You don't want somebody coming and say, oh, you want 5? Well, I'll give you 2. Oh, okay, that's a great idea. Be able to carefully discuss the points as to why you're worth what you think you're worth. Buy the component. Yes, buy the component. Look in the deal maker, try a quick equity structure to rough out the deal or two. Get that 2-pager going. We give you a beautiful little way to get a 2-pager going. And we've even included some mug shots of the management because management's really important. It's not what you're doing, it's who you're doing. Remember, if you have a brilliant idea and you have lousy management, you got nothing. If you have a brilliant idea and crooks, you're really in deep. If you got a mediocre idea and brilliant people, you're probably going to come out on top. If you have a lousy idea, you're not going to attract any good people, so you might as well just wash that one out of your hair. I'm going to wash that one right out of my hair. I'm going to wash that one right out of my hair. From South Pacific, if you happen to want to know. All right. Keep on coming down. And very important, experiment with exit valuations on the low, mid, and the high scenarios. You can do that. I've got all these wonderful buttons. You go blip, 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 and you can see all this stuff happening. Play the game. It's like a little movie. We're the only ones that have automated this thing so you can really see what's going on. We also provide many different types of security to secure a single round. Look, I love preferential royalties. You could spike returns by using distributions ahead of your exit. Now, preferential royalty, we're going to go into detail, but dividends are also great. And I've shown you how much more of an internal rate of return you get if you can hand out some dividends. It's about IRR, folks. Nobody wants to wait 10 years and get the 10 to 1. They'd love to get a little bit of mailbox money. So if you can do it, do it. In the first couple of years, you're going to use all your money to grow. But after that, you may have a medium-sized business that's doing very well. Time to hand out a little bit of money to your patient shareholders. Don't keep it all for yourself and buy yourself the big yacht and all that good stuff and forget about your shareholders. It's not right. Ever heard of the restaurant deal? Well, I named it that because it's the way a huge number of local deals are done. I've given you all the instructions, but basically it says the guy with the money doesn't have expertise. There's a guy over here with expertise. They get together. They form a deal. This guy gets a little bit of money on a monthly basis to operate and set up the deal. When this deal starts making money, they pay this guy with the money back, maybe as a multiple. And then after that happens, then they split in some fashion. And that's the restaurant deal. I've got all the calculations that show you how it's done. Imagine that. Sooner or later, you're going to have to produce something in writing. That's why you use an executive summary. It produces the supporting documents, which is what you've done. It coalesces them, puts them all together pretty much automatically. There's not a lot of writing to do in this, folks. Okay. A little more water. Okay. I'm a Microsoft fan. You can use what you like. But Outlook's a pretty great program. Any way you do it. On the back of a napkin, I don't care. Just start assembling your investor prospects. Call and show some interest in them first. See if they'd like to hear more. Establish a little conversation. Now look, one of the things I do is, the older folks, they like scotch. I'm going to give you a little inside tip here. I've got 5 or 6 different kinds of good quality scotch. I got a slam dunk, beautiful office. Lots of art. And I invite people to my office for a little smoked salmon and a little scotch. It cost me $50. Big friggin' deal. I get an hour to an hour and a half of conversation. Now, don't have 10 people. Invite 2. Then you have a nice conversation and trade the stories. They'll never forget that. Plus, they got good scotch and they're having a good time. You've made some friends. It's a great idea. It works. Pitch decks. I've heard so much about pitch decks. I've seen some terrific templates. That's why I'm not making any templates, because they're better than anything I could make. Use them. But you got to start with what I got first, because you're going to put gibberish into a pitch deck unless you have an organizer, quantitative and qualitative. That means numbers and words. That's what we got. A pitch deck is a wonderful way to display all that, but you have to have the answers first. A pitch deck is not an authoring tool. It's a demonstration tool. You have to have the information first. Otherwise, you're just painting a picture. And if you don't have the backing and you get asked, guess what? You're going to flunk because you don't have the answers. Look, when do you use a pitch deck? Well, I said send the pitch deck after you have at least chatted or casually met with the investors. If you send pitch decks or business plans unannounced, unqualified, who cares who this guy is? They're going straight in the trash. You have to have somebody saying, okay, I'll look for it. I think that's an interesting idea, enough for me to at least take 3 minutes of my valuable time. That's why you have to establish these relationships. Now, how do you do it when they're 3,000 miles away? Oh, that's a bit tricky. Maybe go to some of these investor trade shows. Go out and visit people. If you just pick up a phone and call somebody, you're probably never going to get through. It's personal these days. I've given you 4 nice pitch deck links. They have some good stuff there. Remember, I don't care if you make it, buy it, steal it. 10 slides, 5 to 7 bullets per slide. One-liners. Don't have a big, long sentence. Big fonts. Make them as big as you can without it making it look ridiculous. I can't tell you how many times I see a 15-point font and it's being shown on an overhead screen, and you're sitting there going, I can't read that stuff. It's supposed to be quick anyway, so you don't want to have big, long sentences. I clean up people's pitch decks all the time, and they don't know how to write the English language, and they put too much stuff into it, so I'm always constantly looking at, cut this out, cut this out, cut this out. And they pay me to do it. I'll earn some points because they're my friends. I'm good at this. Wait a few days before calling. If you bug them too much, it's the art of how much you should bug somebody. Some people learn how fast they do things. Some people like it right away. Other people take a little bit of time. You can always ask them, When should I contact you next? They say, oh, next year. Ain't got a deal there. If they say, give me a call tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Well, be sure you call them at 2 o'clock. You might even text them ahead of time saying, I'm going to call you at 2 o'clock. It's unobtrusive. Set up physical appointments to interested investors for the opportunity to show your stuff. They will want to see you. Now, hopefully you can do it locally so you don't spend a lot of time and money on airplane tickets going, to both coasts or wherever you happen to be. But if you got a real one, you might have to go. All right, going to move this up a little further here. Practice your pitch utilizing the 15 talking points. We have you write out 15 talking points. Now, they may not come in order, but they're likely questions. And if you know them, then you've prepared yourself. Very important. And also, when you write those things, you're basically going to weave them together into your executive summary. So start small and start weaving. And these things are great practice points. You've got to establish your pre-money value and negotiate your basic price terms and conditions with the investors. Look, don't be stupid if they say, you're only worth $3 million and you want $5 million. See if you can't ooch it some way. But if they really got the money and they're ready to go, do it. Now, they're going to sooner or later ask you for your business plan. Okay, so complete it. But wait until you see some interest and see the direction. Now, there's a fine point here. Sometimes you'll talk to guys, I want to see it done this way. And then the guys, I want to see it done this way. Well, your head is spinning because they've pulled at you here and they pulled at you here, and you don't know where to go. Kind of stick to your guns. Have a range within that area that you can work with. Understand your limits. Having the numbers to show is a good way to establish these boundaries. You know how fast you can grow. They might say, well, what happens if we give you half the money? Can you grow that fast? Yes, sir. I've got the slow version here. I'm not going to hire Harry. I'm not going to get that big office. We're going to kind of slow it down. But we could certainly prove that we've got a business. Thank you. We'll take the money. Investors are always going to generate the term sheet. Don't give them a term sheet. At one time, I even tried to make a term sheet, and I went, wrong thing. This is their engagement letter to you. Do seek legal help. These things get very complex, and if you could model what happens, you see, here's the trick. I wanted to have a term sheet in there which would model into the financials to see what would happen in waterfalls and, things that happen badly. They might take back a bunch of stock. There's all kinds of things that can happen. You got to get a good lawyer that understands these things. You're going to have to pay him a little bit of money. Funny thing about that. And you know what? You may even be socked with the closing costs of this deal. I've heard people doing that before. So don't be surprised if they say, there's $15,000 worth of legal. Take it out of the funds that we give you. Study and negotiate details of investor term sheet and execute it when it is reasonable. Never, and I'm going to scream and yell, never take money from people you don't like or you don't trust. They might give you a call in the middle of the night and say, I want my money back now. If you don't do it, I'm going to get you. No, sir. Walk the deal. Run. Fund to your bank. Don't take a deal where they say we'll give you, $3,000 every 2 weeks. That's a BS deal. They will not come across. You'll be hanging out there and you'll be in trouble. Fund 100% of the money. Always return calls to investors who missed the round. Hey, Bill, we just got funded. I'm not rubbing it in, but I'm so glad that you showed interest. It gave us great confidence. Now, look, maybe somebody will drop out and let me call you again if we need more money because you showed some interest. Thanks ever so much. Yeah, how many times you heard this? Plan your work and work your plan. Keep updating your plan. Things change. You got to be ready to change with them and know what the effects are. Oh boy, this is an important one. Look into my eyes. This is an important one. If you get into trouble, Call your investors and let them know what it is. Too many people want to hide this stuff and keep it in their shirt. Oh, I'm in trouble, but I got to have that real happy face. And everything's going fine, but I'm getting screwed from the back. No, you get into trouble. Now, look, if you lose a nickel, don't call them up every time. But if you start to have some headwinds, call them and say, hey, we got some problems here. I'd like to have a meeting with y'all and tell you what I see for your advice. Hey, they might say we want all our money back. It can happen. It has happened. It's probably better to do that than to waste all their money and then have them really angry at you and maybe file a lawsuit because you didn't tell them the truth. Enjoin your investors. That's why you never take money from people you don't like or trust. Take it from the people you trust, and then you're more likely to talk to them. They're a bunch of smart people out there. They've been through the ringer. Use their experience and their knowledge. Last one. I used to race sailboats, and I raced against Teddy Turner. And Teddy Turner still is a really interesting fellow. He's near the end of his situation now, but he's a wonderful guy. And he came up with this little saying, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise. It was before the internet, but it's still great advice. Folks, that's enough talking about how to close a deal. But there's a lot of wisdom here. I hope it works and I hope it helps you. See you at the closing table, maybe. Bye.